Usenet was the precursor to the modern World Wide Web. It was, and still is to an extent, used for users of the Internet to communicate with each other in groups called newsgroups. It was conceived in 1979 and was established in 1980, about a decade before the establishment of the World Wide Web we all know and love. Long before the occurrence of events such as the Habba Hotel raids or the Drawball Wars, Usenet was the primary network upon which communication on the Internet took place. It has since declined severely in use, but during its peak it was not without its fair share of conflict and what we know today as drama. The largest of such, the Meow Wars, took place during the late 20th century. In January of 1996, a group of students from Harvard University had the idea to colonize empty newsgroups. They chose one, alt.fan.karl-malden.nose. They discussed mundane daily activities in the group and eventually became bored of it. They decided to expand their realm by doing the same thing to other empty and barren newsgroups. They became bored of this as well, and one of their members suggested they invade an actual active newsgroup. When this occurred, someone in the group, a student by the name of Matt Bruce, suggested that they start posting to a newsgroup named alt.tv.beavis-n-butthead, and that they use big words and perfect grammar, and refuse to write as the young ruffians in question speak. This was posted to the newsgroup, and the regulars there were not amused by this. One of the nosers, the name the Harvard users would come to be called, named Chuck Truesdell, put meow meow in many of his posts, a reference to the Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood character Henrietta Pussycat. He used this as a signature, as his initials read out CAT. A user on the newsgroup made a post as a call for arms against the Harvard students. It labeled the nosers and Harvard students in general as being a threat to their way of life looming over Usenet. It demands that during summer, when the students will mostly be absent from their home newsgroup, that they overwhelm it with meow meow posts, leaving all of the post calls a wasteland upon their return. The members of the newsgroup that had been disturbed by the Harvard students invaded the realm of the nosers in retaliation against Bruce. They spammed meow meow, which resulted in them referring to themselves as the Meow Meow Army. They also attacked college students whom they perceived as snobbish and even forged articles in Bruce's name to rile up more people to attack him. Thus, the Meow Wars, the flame war to end all flame wars, had begun. Bruce had found out about the article forging and attempted to write off his attacks as a joke, and when that failed, he said, "Please stop, cease and desist, you are only making yourselves look silly. It's only worse than the conflict, and to make matters even worse, he threatened to delete every article which had the word meow in it." The newsgroups that had fallen to the realm of the nosers were flooded with meows, so much so that the Harvard students were unable to use them for actual communication. The Meow Meow Army successfully pushed the Harvard students totally out of one of their newsgroups. This led to them retreating to a more localized newsgroup hosted on a Harvard-based server. The Meowers' forces continued to encroach upon the remnants of the nosers' once expansive domain for about a year. The Meowers converted the conquered newsgroups into ones that suited them more, using Fluffy, Matt Bruce's pet. The poorly organized Meower factions eventually coalesced into one entity, the Empire of Meow. The Meowers laid claim to all of Usenet and continued expanding for years as the Meowers would continue on into the early 21st century, or at least until 2001. The expansion of the Meowers led to warnings occasionally being posted in newsgroups in the alt hierarchy. You will be able to recognize a troll and an impending invasion from alt.syntax.tactical by cascades, numerous appearances of the word meow, and cross-posts to alt.fan.karl-malden.nose. The Meowers used tactics such as recontextualization, provoking wars between their enemies, and mail bombing. Usenet users put the word meow into their kill list to prevent them from seeing the raiding posts, which was easily circumvented by the Meowers by changing the spelling of the word. The Usenet death penalty was attempted to be used on them, but had the unintentional side effect of infringing on people trying to have genuine conversation. The Meowers moved their reach out of Usenet, spamming email servers and causing trouble to Internet users elsewhere. The Meow Wars were the first event on the Internet that was the equivalent of a global conflict. The events during its duration definitely influenced later Internet culture. The most notable thing popularized by the war is ASCII art, which became commonplace on Usenet and occasionally is used in text-based raids in the modern era. The wars led to the advent of the Cascade Attack, a spam attack in which two or more users reply to each other endlessly in order to disrupt a thread or conversation. Decades later, Bruce would state, "I see an analogy between 1990s Usenet and 2010's Twitter as places where complete strangers interact with each other but easily assume the worst about each other. I see an analogy between the Meowers themselves and people who today would be on 4chan or 8chan. Another key figure in the conflict, Jeff Boyd, would say, "The Meow Wars was a tongue-in-cheek conflict between a bunch of people who refused to take anything seriously, and system administrators took everything seriously. Plus, it was a heaping helping of human nature. Give a bunch of 19 to 22-year-olds a vast, lawless, online plain unclaimed forest, and sooner or later, it's gonna burn."